Is this the year? Is this the year the Chargers finally dethrone Kansas City and see Justin Herbert live up to his full potential under Coach Harbaugh and his new revamped offense? In this episode, I'm going to go through my predictions for the 2025 season and also what I think is going to be the outcome of the playoffs this year. Is this the year, Chargers fans? Is this the year we dethrone Kansas City and see Justin Herbert live up to his full potential? Before we get into it, my name is Taylor, and I am the host of the Electric Edge podcast. I am a huge Chargers fan. I've been a fan since I was 12 years old. I first saw an LT jersey, and I instantly became a Chargers fan. I'm also a season ticket holder of the Chargers. I decided that I wanted to start a podcast talking about the Chargers. There's not many things in life that I get more excited and enthusiastic about than Chargers football. Game days, I live and die by every play, and I want to share that passion with other Chargers fans. So let me go through what I think is going to be the 2025-2026 season for the Chargers, what the record's going to be, and if they take the leap from last year and finally dethrone Kansas City. So do I think that the Chargers are going to have a better record than last year? The answer is yes. The Chargers won 11-6 last year. When I saw the initial roster of last year, I didn't think the team was going to be a playoff team. I thought they were going to be a 9-8 team, maybe an 8-9 team. I just didn't see them really taking a leap into the playoffs, especially from the year prior with Brandon Staley at the helm. But pleasantly surprised, I think that last year's schedule was a pretty easy schedule considering. The Raiders were not a good team. Denver was in a rebuilding year. They played some easy teams like the Saints and Titans and the Patriots at the end of the year. So I think that really benefited the Chargers getting to that 11-6 record. This year, though, my prediction for the Chargers is going to be a 13-4 record. It's a little ambitious, but I think they make the leap this year, especially with the revamped offense. And also, they've gotten younger on defense. Plus, it's another year of Greg Roman's offense under Justin Herbert's belt. I also think that Herbert throws for 30-plus touchdowns a year. Ladd McConkey is going to have probably a 1,200-yard year. I think Trey Harris is a great addition to that offense. They have two beast of running backs. And I also think bringing Mike Williams back for the deep ball is a good thing for Justin Herbert. I also think Quentin Johnson is going to take another leap. I don't have full faith in him. He has to prove it to me. But he did progress last year, which was a good stepping stone, but the drops have to stop. If we can limit drops on Quentin Johnson, I think their offense is going to be one of the top 5 in the league. I also like the moves they made on defense in the draft. They got a little bit younger. Joey Bosa's gone, but Khalil Mack is still there. You have Derwin James's presence and leadership on the defense. I think that defense stays just as solid, maybe if not better than last year's defense. So with that being said, let's go through my predictions for all 17 games on the Chargers schedule. Week 1, will the Black Magic end with Kansas City? Week 1 will be in Brazil. The Chargers will play Kansas City to open up the season. As a season ticket holder, I am not happy that Chargers fans lost a home game against Kansas City. I think it's a bad call on the NFL's part, but I understand they're trying to grow the game and expand into Brazil, and why not have a matchup like that? So do I think Kansas City's gotten better from last year? In my opinion, I don't think so. I mean, their offensive line, they added Jalen Moore. He signed a 2-year, $30 million deal. They also drafted Josh Simmons in the first round. Yes, they've gotten better, possibly in the offensive line, but that was a big weakness of them last year. Running back room, you still have Pacheco there. They signed Elijah Mitchell. I think their running back room is average. Defense, Chargers fans will love this. Kansas City signed Christian Fulton, who I can't tell you how many times last year I screamed, whether I was at the game or at home, at the blown coverage Christian Fulton had and how many pass interference calls he got. So good riddance to him. Good luck in Kansas City. Hopefully get some of those calls go our way when we play Kansas City. And then a fan favorite of Chargers fans, they signed Jerry Tillery, who will not make an impact whatsoever on the defense, but that's neither here nor there. I think their defense is okay. I wouldn't say it's an improvement from last year, but I think it'll still be solid. Some losses they had were Joe Thuney, he got traded to the Bears. Justin Reed's gone. DeAndre Hopkins is gone. McCole Hardman, Justin Watson, and Samjay Perrine. Yes, on the offense, not too big of losses, but still there's some depth there that they lost. So overall, yes, the Chiefs may look slightly better on the offensive side because they upgraded their offensive line, which is a big issue for them last year. Defense is so-so. I say the Chargers go into Brazil and they win this game by a score of 24-21. The Chargers will have the ball last and kick the game-winning field goal. So we're going to start the season 1-0. Week 2, we got to fly back into the U.S. and head to Las Vegas. We playing the Raiders. Do I think the Raiders got better from last year? Yes. I mean, they were at the bottom of the barrel last year regardless, so kind of the only direction they have to go is up. I think Geno Smith will be a quality quarterback for them, especially with Pete Carroll at the helm. I think he'll do well in Vegas, but I don't think he's that quarterback that's going to get you over the hump. Offensively, they signed Alex Kappa for their offensive line. Yes, he's playing the Super Bowl, but he had a bad year last year, so I don't see that fixing the guard issues with the Raiders. They drafted 2 offensive tackles for some depth as well. And they have JPJ at center, which is a staple of that offensive line. So I think they still have pass protection problems that will impact them throughout the season. For offensive weapons, I mean, they drafted Ashton Jonty. I mean, I wish the Chargers had a higher pick to draft him, but I like our guy Hampton. So that's definitely going to help their run game, but it may be less of an impact if they have offensive line issues. I mean, at the tight end position, they drafted Jack Beck. I mean, they have Brock Bowers. And they drafted Michael Mayer a couple years ago. So I think they have a solid tight end core. As far as wide receivers, I think it's still iffy. Defensively, they signed some people in free agency. They signed Devin White, Jeremy Chin. I think they improved their linebacking corps as well as their defensive backs. Their defensive line, I mean, you have Max Crosby there at the anchor, but I think there could be some improvement there. Then they have new leadership. So you have Pete Carroll, who came in. He's won Super Bowls. I think bringing in someone who has a winning background and a winning culture is going to help the Raiders. But I think they're a couple years away from actually competing. And it's also dependent on if Geno Smith is actually the answer. They're going to go elsewhere in quarterback in the future. So I would say that the Raiders, yes, they've made improvements in the offseason, but I don't think they're at the level yet to really challenge the AFC West. So I say the Chargers fly back from Brazil, fly into Vegas, and win 31-20. So they'll be 2-0 on the season. Then week 3, we finally have our first home game at SoFi. Now, if you're a Chargers season ticket holder or you go to Chargers games often, you know any division game, you typically have a split crowd between Chargers fans and whoever the opponent is. So having it be a division game against Denver, it'll be a split fan base, but hopefully our home crowd continues to build and we really have that home field advantage. But I think the Broncos definitely have gotten better in the offseason. They got Evan Ingram. They signed Dre Greenlaw. They signed Talanoa Hufanga from the 49ers. They took our guy J.K. Dobbins, which good luck to him in Denver, except when you play the Chargers twice a year. So I think they've gotten much better. They had 7 picks in the draft. They drafted a cornerback in the first round. They had drafted a wide receiver in the 3rd round. They didn't really have too many losses, so I think that definitely benefits them. And last year, they were really kind of growing, and they became a playoff team. I think another year that Bo Nix has under Sean Payton and his offense, I think that really makes the leap for Denver and that whole team to get better. So overall, I think mostly their team has gotten better. I still think they're coming into SoFi. I think the Chargers are on a roll from weeks 1 and 2, and they win 27-24. So we got 3 wins under our belt. We are 3-0 to start the year. Week 4, we have to fly from LA all the way to the East Coast and play the Giants. Now, luckily, we're flying to the East Coast and playing the Giants. So the big story in the offseason for the Giants is all the quarterbacks they have on their roster, signing Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. They drafted Jackson Dart, and then you have Tommy Cutlets still on the roster. Defensively, the Giants got much better, especially drafting Abdul Carter in the first round. Offensively, they signed a little Jordan Humphrey. He's definitely a role player. I still don't see them recovering yet from losing Saquon Barkley. So I think the Chargers, yes, even with a long flight, fly all the way to the East Coast and beat the Giants 31-17. So the Chargers have a hot start. We're 4-0 on the season. We're in first place in the West. That's what I like to hear. And then comes week 5. So we play the Commanders at home. I think the Commanders, even going to the NFC Championship game last year, have improved this offseason. They got Debo. They signed Larry Tunsil. They have a supporting wide receiver in Michael Gallup. They signed a veteran corner in Jonathan Jones, veteran safety Will Harris, Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz are back, so they have that veteran leadership on both the offensive side and defensive side of the ball. I have Washington possibly going to the Super Bowl this year. I think Jaden Daniels doesn't have a second-year slump. I think he progresses even more. And I have the Chargers actually losing this game 30-24. So after 5 weeks, we're 4-1, still in a playoff spot, still first in the AFC West. Then we have week 6. We fly back across the East Coast and go play Miami. So Miami is interesting. I think if Tua is not healthy, the Dolphins don't really make any waves. If he is healthy, I think it's still hit or miss. You never know what you're going to get with Tua. As far as additions for Miami, not too big of a splash. I mean, they drafted Ollie Gordon in the 6th round. They signed Alex Mattson to kind of back up Devon A-Chain. But there's issues with Jalen Ramsey, who wants to get traded. They did add some depth to their secondary. They drafted a defensive lineman in the 1st round. Miami's one of those hit or miss teams, but I think the Chargers fly to Miami and they get the win 31-27 against them. Week 7, we fly back home, and this is a 2-game stretch where we have back-to-back home games. So we play Indianapolis in week 7. Indy is one of those other teams where you see flashes of, hey, this team's pretty solid, and then Anthony Richardson kind of does what he does, right? I think signing Daniel Jones could help him, but if they're going to start Anthony Richardson, I just don't see them kind of making that next step. As far as upgrades, they upgrade their secondary a little bit. They signed a couple corners and a safety. They got some help on the defensive line. They signed a backup running back in Khalil Herbert. So you have some backup to JT. I think they're one of those teams that are going to be in that 500 ballpark. They lost a couple offensive linemen, which is definitely going to hurt, and that may impact their run game as well. So I have the Chargers winning this game 34-20 at home. We're 6-1 on the season. Then the Chargers have a quick turnaround. So Thursday Night Football against Minnesota Vikings. It'll be a reunion for Coach Harbaugh and J.J. McCarthy. Vikings, yes, they may have lost Sam Darnold, but I don't think that matters in the grand scheme of things. From the offensive side, they've gotten better. They signed a couple offensive linemen. They signed Will Fries and Ryan Kelly. So that definitely helps their offensive linemen keep J.J. McCarthy upright. They signed Jonathan Allen on defense and Javon Hargrave. So a couple of defensive tackles to really bolster that front defensive line. As far as any other weapons, they signed Jordan Mason. Actually, they acquired him via trade. But I don't think that makes much of a difference there. So they got a little more depth at running back, but we don't know what J.J. McCarthy is yet, right? But I think he has a good coach in Kevin O'Connell, which he seems to be the quarterback whisperer and can really develop quarterbacks. So it remains to be seen as to what the Vikings really are, but they definitely gotten better in the offseason. So I still have the Chargers winning this game 24-17 at home. Coach Harbaugh gets the win against his old quarterback. Week 9, we head to Tennessee. The big news out of Tennessee, drafting Cam Ward with a number 1 overall pick. I think that definitely helps the Titans. Last year, we played the Titans at home, and Will Levis was an absolute disaster. So that's definitely going to help there. Offensive line, they've improved. They signed Kevin Zeiter, and they got Dan Moore Jr. to help keep Cam Ward upright. As far as defensively, they signed, you got a linebacker and Cody Barton, Xavier Woods at safety. They re-signed one of their corners, Darnell Baker Jr. They didn't really lose anyone, but I think this is a good year for Cam Ward. I think he's going to do well in his first year. I still have the Chargers winning 27-20. Week 10, we are back at home, and we are playing Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the running joke with Pittsburgh is they're typically a 500 team, and somehow sneak into the playoffs. I don't think Aaron Rodgers makes the team better. I think he's solid, but he's also 41, 42. So father time catches up to everyone. They traded for DK Metcalf. I think that definitely helps. They got some veteran wide receivers that they re-signed. So they re-signed Robert Woods, Scotty Miller, and Ben Skowronek. Probably got that name wrong. Defensively, no matter what Pittsburgh does, they're always solid. But TJ Watt isn't too happy with contract negotiations right now, so that's remains to be seen if he holds out. I don't think he will. I don't think he's that type of guy, but that could cause some issues if he's not there on the defensive side of the ball. I say the Chargers win this game at home 17-14. I think it's going to be a defensively driven game, and the Chargers will come out top with a field goal. Week 11, we fly back to the East Coast, and we play Jacksonville. Jacksonville's big headline of the offseason is drafting Travis Hunter. I think from a free agent standpoint, they didn't do really anything that makes some splashes. I mean, they did lose Christian Kirk. They traded him. Evan Ingram left in free agency. Gabe Davis was released. I don't think they've gotten better. And they had a top 5 pick. So I think the Chargers fly to Jacksonville, get a little bit of revenge, and win 27-20. Week 12 is our bye week. I'm very glad this year we have a bye week later in the season, not week 4. But however, week 4 last year, Justin Herbert kind of needed 14 days off to kind of heal from his ankle injuries. But I think having a bye week later in the season benefits the Chargers. However, it's a lot of travel to get to that bye week. But coming out of the bye, we're home against Vegas. I think the Chargers win that game 31-17 at home, and the Chargers sweep the Raiders in their series for the year. Week 14 is probably the toughest matchup of the year for the Chargers. They play Philadelphia, the reigning Super Bowl champs. It seems that the Eagles right now, they don't get worse. They just they lose players and they reload. So I think they're going to be just as dominant. I can see Philly and Washington be in the NFC Championship game again next year. I call the Chargers losing this game 27-20 at home. But I think they stay competitive throughout the game, and it's going to be something within 2 minutes that loses them the game. This would be a good test to kind of see where the Chargers are at this point in the season going into the playoffs. Week 15, we are at Kansas City. I think some of the black magic for Kansas City reappears, and I think the Chargers split this series, and they lose to Kansas City in Kansas City 2017. Week 16, we fly to Dallas to play We Dem Boys. It's the Cowboys. I mean, they always have high expectations and kind of fall off and don't deliver or have injuries. For us Chargers fans, one of their key defensive signings this year was Kenneth Murray Jr., so good luck to him there. They also signed Khair Elam from Buffalo. They got George Pickens on the offensive side, so seeing CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, that'll be interesting, but does Dak Prescott stay healthy this year? That remains to be seen. Also, they lost one of their top offensive linemen, Zach Martin. He retired this year. So it remains to be seen how well that offensive line holds up. I don't think that the Cowboys have gotten better in the offseason. So my prediction going into this game is Chargers win 27-20. Week 17, we are in Houston, where we got our butts whooped against the Texans. So I think Justin Herbert has a revenge game against Houston. As far as their offseason moves, I think the Texans got a little bit better. They acquired Christian Kirk. They signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They extended Jalen Pitre. So I think that they're still a solid team. So I think that's going to be a very competitive game for the Chargers. But it's also going to be telling whether or not the Chargers already have a postseason spot locked, who they play. So I'm going into this saying that the Chargers are still playing all their starters. They go into Houston, they win 21-20. And then last week of the season, we have Denver in Denver. I say the Chargers have a playoff spot locked. I say they actually win the AFC West this year. They sit their starters. They lose 24-14. And they go into the playoffs with a 13-4 record. I think this gets them the 2 seed in the AFC. I think Buffalo is going to be the 1 seed. And I think Kansas City will be a wild card team this year. I have very high expectations on the Chargers this year. I think having a second year under the same coaching staff, they've gotten better on all aspects. I think they finally make that leap where, hey, this is a legitimate Super Bowl team. I'm not saying this is the year where it's Super Bowl or bust, but I think they have a legit shot to run the table in the AFC and make it to the Super Bowl. Now, I'm a Chargers fan. I'm a bit biased, but I want to be optimistic going into the season because I think Justin Herbert needs to shut up all the haters, and he needs to get the Chargers into at least the divisional round this year. So 13-4 season. That's the best record we've had, God, in a long time. So I have very high expectations for the Chargers. Let's hope they deliver on them. Be sure to subscribe to the Electric Ed podcast on YouTube. Like this video. Leave a comment for me below and let me know what your thoughts are as far as the Chargers record this year. If you agree with me on games, if you don't agree with me on games, I'd love to keep the conversation going. And stick around till next time for another episode of The Electric Edge.